Welcome to Real Talk with Chuck and Pam, the podcast. How are you, Chuck?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. We have so many movies that we're going to review again this week, and we have got six with a possibility of actually, we could have talked about maybe eight or nine, but we're going to talk about six today.
Yeah,
Um,
we need
what
to hold on to something for next week.
Okay, and that's definitely a possibility as well. Where do you want to start with this week? We've got two biggies that came out and then some smaller movies.
Well, let's start with the big ones because those are the ones everyone's going to want to know about and the ones they'll be talking about.
All righty, let's start then with Wicked. I'm going to take that one because somehow you didn't like it.
It's not that I didn't like it,
Okay.
it was that it was just kind of,
Okay. All right.
let's
Well,
talk about why I think that.
okay. Wicked is the origin story to The Wicked Witch of the West. I love that we have an origin story to this. This came out in book form in 1995, and then it became a Broadway production, gosh, probably 25, 30 years ago. And I think it's still going strong in some of the major cities and smaller ones alike. I know I saw it like probably 22, 23 years ago and absolutely loved it. So I was very excited to see this come to the big screen. And the fact that we have somebody like Cynthia Erivo, and if you don't know who she is, look her up. She is an incredible actress. She takes chances. She started out in very small indie movies and is just an absolute joy to watch on the screen. She's extremely talented, not just with her acting, but also with her voice. We go back in time to meet. She plays Elphaba. The Wicked Witch of the West's name is actually Elphaba. And Elphaba is born into a wealthy family under some kind of shady circumstances, and she comes out green. Well, that's just not the normal color, and so she's kind of an outcast. She's raised by a nanny who is a bear, a talking bear. There are lots of talking animals in this movie. And years go by, decades, and she ends up bringing her little sister, Nessa Rose, off to boarding school. And she has no intention of staying in boarding school with her. She's just there to drop her off. Well, Madame Morrible, played by Michelle Yeoh, sees what happens when Elphaba gets a little angry or a little protective over her little sister and sees that she has a lot of potential. And so takes her under her wing and tells her, you need to enroll here. You're going to be going to school here, and I am going to be your mentor. Well, we then meet Galinda, not Glinda, but Galinda, and there's a whole shtick about that, and that is played by Ariana Grande. And these two ladies, Elphaba and Galinda, don't exactly get along. Well, they end up becoming roomies, and there's a whole adventure of mishaps between the two of them. Galinda wants to take her down to every corner, but we see the goodness of Elphaba at all of those corners as well. They end up becoming besties, and then we find out how the Wicked Witch became wicked. I don't want to give a whole lot more away other than that. I agree with what Chuck is going to say about it being a little too long. It was a little too long. But I loved the production design. I loved the cinematography. I loved how vibrant it was. The school was like a vibrantly upbeat, colorful version of Harry Potter school. Costuming was incredible. The songs were amazing. Choreography was a lot of fun. I laughed. I was engaged with the characters. I wish that Cynthia Erivo had a little bit more to do with singing. She doesn't really show us how powerful she is with her voice, and maybe that's intentional until the very end of the movie, which she performs a song that will absolutely knock your socks off, or maybe your ruby red slippers too. Ariana Grande does a fine job. I didn't really know much about her. I don't follow her music. I understand she started off in some kid, maybe Nickelodeon show, something like that. And she was wonderful in this role as the spoiled little princess. I had a lot of fun with this. Is it the best movie ever? No. Is it going to entertain you? Absolutely. Should you see this in the movie theater? Absolutely. If you want to go see this origin story, see it in the movie theater. It is larger than life and a lot of fun visually. So I'm going to turn this over to Chuck now so he can add his 2 cents about Wicked.
I agree with a lot of what you said. The two women are great. Great looking movie. Every cent of the budget is on the screen. There's no question about it. It's just too long. And I sound like a broken record. I hate sounding like a broken record. But if this is just the first act of the play, it shouldn't take this long. If this is the first act of the play and we've got another movie and another act and it's going to be as long, you can't tell me that the stage play was 5 hours long.
No, it
And it
was not.
just never got the momentum going for me that I needed. Um, I found my mind wandering. Um, and really, to me, it only became interesting once we finally get to Oz. And that's 2 hours in. Once we finally get to Oz, we take a couple of really dark turns, and it suddenly became interesting to me as far as what the wizard's intention is with her,
Right.
what Alphaba's reaction is to that, how they end up taking Glinda into the fold, the circumstances behind that. And we get an answer as to why those terrifying monkeys have wings. Thank you for providing that answer. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It just was too long of a haul for me. I mean, I just moved this along. I mean, if you've seen the stage play, then you know that this thing must have moved much quicker from one song to the next. There were long gaps when there's no singing in this movie. And for a musical, that's a bit of a problem. I mean, I know that people who love the play are going to love this. I mean, I saw with this audience of about 200, they were all
Wow.
clapping at the end as I slunk out. So, you know, those who have been looking forward to this, I don't think they'll be disappointed. I just think it's a rather crass approach on the part of Universal Pictures because obviously they want you to pay twice to see the whole thing. This is a cash grab. And I understand that to a certain extent, but when to me that affects the film itself or the product itself, to me that's a problem. So I'm on the fence like for this one. Like I said, I didn't hate it, but come on, let's move this along.
I do not disagree with you on it being too long. That is definitely an issue. And you and I discussed this off the air, and I don't disagree with what you're saying about it. I, however, was much more enthralled by the film. I was never bored by it.
Okay.
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 All
What can
right.
I say? Okay.
So a movie that I was completely bored by is the next movie that I want you to talk about, and that is Gladiator 2. Tell
Why
us
do I
about
get to
that,
talk about this one?
because it's yours.
Oh, okay. All right. Gladiator 2. It's funny. They've been kicking around the ideas for Gladiator 2 since the last one came out, which is almost 25 years ago. And what I find ironic is that they had such a difficult time finding a story, and what they end up doing basically is remaking the first one once they get around to making the sequel. This is basically the same story. We have Paul Mescal, supposedly the next big thing in movies, starring as Lucius. We see him living in a city in northern Africa that is attacked in the opening sequence by the Roman army, led by Marcus Acacius, played by Pedro Pascal. Acacius is probably the most interesting character in the film, in that he's the general of the Roman legion, but he's very reluctant in what he's doing. He's being driven by two mad emperors, Emperor Geta and Emperor Caracalla, who are brothers, to conquer as much land as possible. And
Did you
Acacius,
mean Denzel Washington? It plays that role?
no,
No, okay. What's Denzel's name in this?
Macrinus.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. The city is sacked. Lucius sees his wife killed, so he's pissed off. And like so many other people in the city that has been taken, he is taken into slavery, where he is eventually sold to Mike Rannis, played by Denzel Washington. This guy brokers in warriors, and he provides warriors, slaves that he has trained, to the Mad Emperors for their gladiator games. If this is sounding familiar, well, there's a reason. It's very, very familiar. It follows the same beats completely as the first film, other than the fact that it knows screenwriter David Scarpa and director Ridley Scott, they know we've covered this material before, and they try to distract us by cramming in even more action sequences in the film. The action sequences, for the most part, are pretty cool. Again, like the first film, we start small and become more and more grand. We actually end with one of the battles of in which they would actually, and I did some reading about this, they would actually flood the Colosseum and recreate naval battles. They actually did this, and boy, these guys, people were smart. They had an incredible aqueduct system that started at the river. And they actually were able to slope things, and they used gravity to have the water travel into the Colosseum. And then they were actually able to empty the entire Colosseum in like 15 or 20 minutes. Um, Fascinating stuff. This is the type of thing that you do when you watch a movie like this and you realize, oh, that was actually more interesting than the movie.
Right.
Um, and it becomes silly, which is fine. You and I both talked about the CGI in this film. Um, in the first movie, we had tigers. This time out, we get baboons and rhinos and sharks during the whole swimming naval battle sequence. They never did that, by the way, in real life. There were never any real sharks. And the CGI to render these creatures goes from passable to seemingly unfinished. The baboons just were, it seems as though they needed another run through the program. Um, Washington is a marvel, of course. He walks away with the movie, and it's interesting. It doesn't even look as though he's trying. Um, he, he's very contemporary in his portrayal and in his speech, and he's kind of like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'm just doing my thing," and he just walks away with the movie. Mescal, I mean, I'm sure he's a nice young man. He just doesn't have the gravity of Russell Crowe. I was never felt emotionally engaged in this one as I did the first one. He just can't, he just didn't hold my attention. He doesn't have that star quality, that persona, that established persona yet, that I think you need to carry a movie like this over the top. And as I said, I think had they concentrated a bit more on Acacius, played by Pedro Pascal, he was the most interesting character because he did not want to be a general. He knew he was doing the wrong thing, and I needed more of him. I think that would have injected a bit more life and a bit more interest in the movie to me, and would have been something different as well.
Right.
This one too, fans of the first one are going to love this. It is also too long, and it's going to make a ton of money at the box office, which is what Paramount wants. So, again, you get what you want. You're going to get all your expectations are going to be met, but it's just too much.
I would agree with you. There was a lot of fighting and killing and fighting and killing, and that was about it as far as my perspective. And you're right, Denzel Washington, as you say, walks away with his performance. And I did notice I felt like, oh, are you from New York? Because
He didn't care, man.
he didn't. And you know what? That's okay because he was actually interesting. Nobody else was of any interest to me. And some of the performance, Connie Nielsen, oh my God, if you can you fake cry any more poorly than that? It was
Wow.
just, it was a tough watch for me. I was horribly, horribly bored by it. And I don't
Well,
like Ridley
this is
Scott's.
not your cup of tea.
It isn't, but give me a story, and then I can go beyond what I don't like about those kinds of movies. If you give me a story, there wasn't much of a story. Yeah, so I say skip that one. Another one that really doesn't have as much of a story as it needs to have. I'm going to take us right into Blitz, Chuck. Is that okay with you?
Go for it.
Steve McQueen writes and directs this film about World War II during the Blitz in London. It's a pivotal time. It's a disturbing time in World War II. The men have all gone off to fight, and the women are now holding down jobs and creating what they need in order to fight the Nazis. We meet Rita, and that's played by Saoirse Ronan, and her son George, played by Elliot Heffernan. And they live with Grandpa, played by Paul Weller. They seem like a very loving family. And then one day, this day has come that Rita must send George away on a train to live out in the country with some other family to keep him safe because London is getting bombed and she can't leave her job at the bomb factory. Um, George lashes out at mom. He's pissed off at her because he's sending or that she's sending him away. And then this is, and I know I said he was put on a train. This is where the whole film derails. It really goes
Oh,
off
look
the
what you
track.
did there. Look what
I
you
know.
did.
Isn't that creative?
Oh,
It loses all of its direction and purpose. And I really wasn't sure, am I watching Oliver Twist or what am I watching here? Because George does have his own little adventure as he jumps off the train and he meets some other ragamuffins that are on another train and they get taken into captivity and they're over the top Disney-like characters, I thought, as far as putting him into slavery to make him steal for them. It was just crazy, preposterous ridiculousness. There's no story there. The story tried to introduce so many characters, but then we never developed any of those characters. We had the three women, Tilda, Agnes, and Doris, the co-workers at the bomb making factory. They looked interesting, but I'll never know. And then we meet Ife, I think is how they pronounced it, Benjamin Clementine. I loved this character. His heart just shines through his eyes. They twinkle. But then, we're going to shelve that story too. And it was just a dull slog of a story, threadbare, and it never got itself up and running. And even the cinematography made it feel fake and artificial and couldn't transport me back in that time period. Skip it. What do you think, Chuck?
I watched this last night, actually.
Okay.
I can't figure it out. I can't figure this movie out. It has everything in place for it to work, and somehow it doesn't. And I can't put my finger exactly on why it doesn't work. The performances are good. I was back in London. I thought the production values and everything, I thought those were top notch. And kid's fine, she's fine, but and I should be weeping at the end of this. I was checking, Facebook on my phone as the final scene comes up. I'm like, and I can't figure out why this movie just sits there. I mean, it's just not compelling at all, and it should be. Just a strange, strange movie to me. Um, I was looking forward to it. Maybe if we were English, we'd understand it more. I don't know.
No,
I
no. Come
it
on,
just
there's no real through story here. It
well,
becomes
the
an
kid is the
adventure
story.
tale. Well, the kid is the story, but the adventures of Huckleberry Finn, aka George, it felt artificial. And I never got to know any of the characters well enough to care. And I think that's why neither of us were shedding a tear at the end.
I guess, but I should care about that kid. For
Should.
some reason, I just didn't. So yeah, a strange misfire. That one's on Apple, and it's a shame that it's getting good reviews. We're the outliers here. Uh,
Really?
I think it's trending at about 80% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it has been a well-liked movie. And I think she does fine work. She always does fine
Yeah,
work.
she does.
I
Yeah.
love her. I know they're going to push her for the other film she's in for a nomination. But yeah, it's trending at 80% positive on Rotten Tomatoes, believe it or not.
Wow, I'm shocked. I am absolutely shocked. All right, we got three more to cover, hopefully today in this podcast. You take it. You pick which one you want to review next.
What's left?
We got Bonhoeffer, The Piano Lesson, and Joy.
Well, I haven't seen Joy,
Okay.
and I know how much you liked Bonhoeffer, so let's cover that one.
Okay.
Bonhoeffer is from Angel Films. Angel Films has become the go-to studio for faith-based films over the past few years. They were behind that Jim Caviezel film that made like over $200 million about child trafficking, and
Oh
they
yeah.
have just kind of tried to capitalize on that. One of their more recent films from earlier this year was Cabrini, which you and I both watched, and I was surprised with how much I liked that, quite frankly. I learned a lot. Production values were great. It was actually a pretty engaging film, and they try to recreate that with Bonhoeffer, and the title is Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Spy, Assassin. There we go. Bonhoeffer apparently and was a pretty interesting guy. He was a Catholic priest in Germany as Hitler is coming to power. And he realizes that he cannot capitulate to everything that's going on. While other higher ups within the church are rolling over for Hitler, he takes a stance and says, "Wait a second, this is not the guy. This is not his church. We really have to do something about this." Before he does that, though, he studies in America. There are some scenes that take place in Harlem in which he discovers jazz and drinking and all that other stuff. And had those scenes not been in the movie, I think we would have had a better movie because it drags right during
Didn't
that.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. But then when he gets back to his homeland, that's when the action really starts, and he becomes involved in resistance groups. He openly defies the German officers. It takes a stand. He does pay some repercussions for this, and eventually, does pay an awful price. When we first meet him in the film, he is being taken away to a prison camp, and the story is told in flashbacks as far as we are finding out just what led him to his fate. The movie, hey, guess what I'm going to say about it?
What? Too long?
Too long. Yeah, it's too damn long. And at times it just comes off like a history lesson, you know, like I'm being lectured to. At times it was hard to get engaged with it, but at the same time, it's hitting so many points about what we're going through right now
Right.
that it ended up being more effective than I thought it would be. Um, I think the times in which it is released are going to make this film seem better than it actually is. Because it is so timely, and I love the fact that it is a call to arms against depression and prejudice and other things as well. And that's another thing that it ties in with Wicked too. That's the message there too. So it's interesting that these movies are coming out at this time. I have a feeling this will do pretty well with church groups and other religious groups because I know that Angel Films approaches churches with deals for group ticket sales and things like that. So it'll have a few good weekends over Thanksgiving. Um, it's there. That's about the nicest thing I can say about it. Well intentioned, but it's just kind of there.
Okay. You liked it more than I did.
I could
I
see your eyes glossing over as I was talking, by the way.
Yeah, the main character, I felt like he mugged for the camera 90% of the time. You're right, the American aspect of the story didn't need to be there, and what was there was incredibly contrived. Everything seemed forced to me. It wasn't a story that was engaging to me, and I felt like it was miscast.
Okay.
I thought Flula Borg as his brother-in-law was kind of ridiculous. His
Say
German
that
accent.
again.
Flula Borg.
Oh, that is a great name. Flugorg. Okay.
Flula Borg.
Flugorg.
Funny guy, super funny guy. So when he came on the screen, I started to laugh because I know he's funny, and he did not play a funny role. I was distracted by the main guy, Bonhoeffer, and his hair. I know that's ridiculous, but I was taken out of the story. Why did they have to
The
do that?
hair.
The
Okay.
hair. It was everything about it was artificial to me. I did not enjoy this. The message, however, is a good message. And you're right, it is about today's times and how hatred can overcome us and our fears and can make us make the wrong choices. It's tough to be brave. This is a message that's important. Unfortunately, I think that the delivery of the message was poor. So that's my thought on that one.
Yep, not gonna disagree with you.
All righty. So the next one that we have is a movie. Let me talk about Joy a little bit because as you said, you did not see Joy. Joy
I
is an
have no joy.
You have no joy. Well, I'm going to share a little joy with you. This is a movie that's going to be on Netflix beginning today, and it stars Thomas and Mackenzie and Bill Nighy. And we have I'm going to go to my notes here real quickly because you know how bad I am with names. I'm just absolutely horrible.
I know, so at times when you forget my name.
I know. Sometimes I wonder. Um, you know, is this early Alzheimer's? Nope, it's not because this has been happening since I was 20 years old. Um, so back to Joy. Thomasin McKenzie plays Jean Purdy, and this takes place back in the 1960s and 70s. And she's a nurse back in Britain. She interviews for a job as a research assistant with Dr. Bob Edwards, and that's played by James Norton. He is on the verge of helping women who can't conceive. This is the first of IVF, in vitro fertilization. Um, the two of them are an odd pair, and they both have very, very different lives outside of the lab. They end up meeting Dr. Steptoe or Mr. Steptoe. I guess they don't call people doctors over in England. They still call them Mr.
Really?
And yeah,
Like,
and he's played by Bill Nighy, and he's an old curmudgeon with a big heart. And he's the guy who's going to give them that one piece of missing technology that will allow them to perhaps have some success with IVF. Things don't go well, and what I loved about this movie is that we see both sides of the coin. Whenever there's some kind of new technology, new discovery, new abilities when it comes to medicine, there's always one side that questions whether or not we have the right to play God, and then there's the other question that's the other side that says we have to expand things as much as possible. And then there's the ones in the middle that say, how is this going to affect me or other people? Um, in today's world, this technology has affected positively over 12 million people, which is amazing to me. This is Jean Purdy's story. And the reason why this story is being told is because she never got credit for how she contributed to the story. This was a gripping story, and it was filled with three characters that we really cared about. And it felt like a balanced movie and took us back into time and allowed us feel to feel the things that they were going through, to feel the traumas and the trials and the tribulations. It was a beautifully done movie that I think is going to go under the radar because nobody's talking about it. So I wanted to make sure that we talked about it, Chuck.
hey, you're talking about it.
I am. I'm trying to spread the joy.
Ah, look at you.
Look
Boy,
at me.
that's twice you've done that during this
I
pod.
know. I
Now you get the
know.
big bucks. Well, if Bill Nye is in it, I will watch it.
I think
Whenever I see his name, I'm watching it.
Yeah, and I love Thomasin McKenzie. I think
Yeah,
she
I
is
like her too.
amazing as well. And another film that's opening on Netflix today is a movie that's been hitting a lot of film festivals around the world, and that is The Piano Lesson. And I think we both agree. Let's end on a movie that we both agree on.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're both on the same page on this one. This is the play by August Wilson. Denzel Washington has taken it upon himself. He is going to produce um, every play that Wilson wrote in what was referred to as the Pittsburgh Cycle. The Pittsburgh Cycle deals with are 10 plays, and they deal with the African American experience in America. Each play takes place during a different decade. And this one, the piano lesson, takes place in the 30s. It's 1935, 1936. It too takes place in Pittsburgh. And the film opens up with Boy Willie, played by John David Washington, Denzel's son. He has come north to Pittsburgh with his buddy Lyman, and they've got a truckload of watermelons. They're going to sell these watermelons. He has a grand plan. He's saved up some money. He's going to take the money from the watermelons, and then he's going to take the money from selling the family piano, put it all together, and he's going to buy a plot of land. And this plot of land is important because this plot of land was the land that their ancestors, slaves, actually worked on. This, of course, would be a reclamation of their past, a validation of their future, and just something that symbolically needs to happen. Well, unfortunately, his sister, played by Danielle Deadwyler, in one of the best performances I've seen this year. I think she is fantastic.
Isn't she
Uh,
though?
She's incredible. Bernice is her name. Uh, she's saying they both own the piano, and she's saying, "No, we're not selling this piano. There's no way I'm selling this piano." And we come to find out why. Samuel Jackson plays their uncle, Uncle Doker. And the second act opens with him giving us the backstory on this piano. And this piano once belonged to the owner of their ancestors. It is eventually stolen, and I'm not going to get into it, but eventually what happens is that the wood cabinet of the piano, their ancestors, the faces of their ancestors are carved into the piano, as are other slaves. So this is a living piece of history. This is something that, has it's more than sentimental value. I mean, it's much more than that. And the two end up arguing over the course of the play as to what to do with the piano. Do you hold on to it as a tribute, as a remembrance to those who came before you, or do you use it to build a future? What do you do? And that is the big question of the film. Film's really about ghosts more than anything, because they also have a ghost that is apparently haunting this home, the ghost of Sutter. Sutter was the guy who owned the farm, who dies mysteriously. So we have a literal ghost, and then you have the ghost of the past looming over them. And they also both have some personal trauma in their past that they have to come to terms with. I was unfamiliar with this play. I mean, I'd heard of it, had never read it, had never seen it. I really like this a lot.
Yeah.
It just has I don't want to say energy, but there's an energy to it, but there's also a fire to it. This is a vital piece of work that you can tell that they were very passionate about bringing to the screen, and that's infectious as you watch this thing. Period details are right on the money. I felt I was back in the 30s, which is important.
Oh
And
yeah.
as I say, I hope it gets enough play so that Danielle Deadweiler gets the credit she deserves. She should be nominated in my mind. I thought she was that good. And the second half of the film, I think she really carries the film.
Yeah. I this one started off a little slow to me, so if you're gonna watch this, please do watch this. Give it some time
Mhm.
because boy, it pays off. These characters are incredibly vibrant. One of the performances that really struck me was Ray Fisher, who plays Lon.
Mhm. Yeah, he's great.
He's amazing.
And I've never seen him like that. I know you don't follow the superhero movies, but
No.
in Justice League movies, he was cyborg, half guy, half
Oh,
robot. Very
okay.
stern, very heroic. And so to see him in this role, I was like, holy cow, this guy can act.
Had no idea.
Yeah.
He's incredible. The entire cast is incredible. I love August Wilson's plays. I think they have so much to say. I think they are timeless. Everything that he has written is timeless, and I'm very grateful that um, these plays are coming to theaters and to the screen so everyone can experience it. There's nothing like a play coming to life. I loved it. I've watched it 3 times now. I need to watch some other things. I know I have like 16 movies I still
Yeah.
need to see before
Yeah,
next week, but I really did enjoy this movie, and I really hope that we see some nominations in many categories on this one.
I agree. I agree.
And
Hey, we did it again. 6 movies in one pot. How did we do this?
I don't know. We've got actually next week we're going to be taking off. I know big one's coming out. Moana is coming out. We've got Nutcrackers on Hulu, and then I think there's something else coming out. So we're going to be taking next week off. Everyone have a wonderful, happy, safe Thanksgiving, and we'll be back the week after that. Watch for some interviews that we have for Moana, though. That'll be on our YouTube channel. I'll be posting that so everyone can access that as well. Chuck, do you have anything to add?
Nope. Take care,
Okay.
everybody.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thanks for listening.